Today we are gathered to pay final reverence in remembering the life of Aleda Clare Warmerdam Rovenstine. Her genetic composition was very unusual. Her generation started centuries ago in Holland. There on the North Shore in Holland, Aleda's father, Pancratius, would go as a lad to the summer home of his mother's birthplace, Nordwijk. There the family business was the local delivery service. Forerunners of the UPS, they would haul the red herring to markets all across Europe. Pancratius was 14th of 17 children. A poor family, happy, whose livelihood was growing tulips in Holland. In this photo, the Warmerdams celebrate 25 years of marriage. Aleda's father, Pancratius, as a small child, sat proudly on the shoulders of his grandfather in the national holiday parades of this veteran, who was a prisoner of war in Dinant, Belgium in 1824. When news came to the teenager Pancratius while at the tavern of his mother's passing, he abandoned Holland, searching for opportunities in the thriving labor markets of Germany. There he embarked upon the seas as a sailor, always hoping that the ship he was working on would end up in America. He came to the USA, New York City, on the ocean liner America in August 1912. Soon Pancratius became John Warmerdam, and the stories of the Wild West beckoned him, and he found work at the 101 Ranch near Ponca City, Oklahoma in 1913. Ranch work, cattle, and horses would take John to Fort Sumner, where he would meet Aleda's mother, Nellie. Nellie left Kentucky in 1899. Her older father died, leaving the young mother Jelly with 6 children and no welfare state to lend a helping hand. The Marshall widow followed her young sons who had gone to help put in railroads. And Uncle Andy Fryer had married a squaw in Oklahoma, a Native American, giving land rights for Andy Fryer to purchase 300 acres near Caddo, Oklahoma. Opportunities came for them to homestead in Fort Sumner, New Mexico, as the Marshall boys kept maintenance of the railroad track, an 8-mile section of the Santa Fe Railroad. It would be a 21-day in a covered wagon that they would bring them to settle in the barren wastelands of Fort Sumner. Aleda's mother, Nellie, rode off at the age of 21, marrying in La Estancia to the young buck cowboy, John Warmerdam. Very soon Aleda was born. John Warmerdam laid his head on the table and wept unabashedly the night that his little girl was born. World War I was upon the hearts and minds of everyone. Aleda's first memory, she recalled, was of seeing the long lines of horses pulling hearses with coffins lined up to bury their dead in the great flu epidemic that swept America in 1919. One evening in Fort Sumner, the window being open, she said she saw Jesus come into her room, setting her upon his shoulder and walking around the yard towards the windmill. She says she never saw Jesus put her down, and she supposed that all through life she's been carried upon Jesus' shoulders. When Aleda was 5, John Warmerdam went to work in Kansas in the wheat harvest and begged the wife Nellie and Aleda to come and join him. Nellie did not want to go to Hutchinson, Kansas, but to begin a new life, but Aleda says she sat on the suitcase and would not let her mother Nellie unpack, and insisted they would get on the train as she wanted to see her daddy. Hers was a very happy childhood. Lots of wonderful memories of a very loving father. She did experience much sadness that she wanted to have brothers and sisters. This never happened. She said when she was very young, she asked God for a large family when she grew up. Well, Donovan, a mutual friend of the family, gave John Rovenstine, her husband, the name Aleda as a pen pal. John would write Aleda, and she saved all of his letters. John destroyed Aleda's letters, thinking that the helping hand, Jimmy, was reading them. John Warmerdam attended a funeral in Yoder, Kansas, and there saw young Aleda, and John's heart was captivated immediately. They had a very rich correspondence relationship, but had little idea who the real person was that they were going to marry. On May the 2nd, 1937, John and Aleda had a simple wedding ceremony. No one at church that night suspected they were coming to a wedding that was going to happen that very night. After the wedding that night, Aleda slept in her bed with her best friend Ruth Ralston, and the groom, John Rovenstine, slept on the couch. The next day they took off on a train to Colorado Springs to begin their new life. The train would make a stop in La Junta where the groom, Johnny, told their bride he needed to go visit a pastor and talk about Bible prophecy. Aleda was upset that her husband gave the appearance he didn't want to be with her. Depression days had gripped the economy of Colorado Springs, and young John Rovenstine began working in bakeries, mattress factories, shoveled coal, TB sanitariums, gardening, digging ditches, and handyman. Later in Hutchinson, Kansas, he worked in the aircraft assembly for the Cessna aircraft. Aleda's story is told in detail as her husband's, John, in the books that they wrote for the family before passing on. Wendell was born in Colorado Springs and was raised by the book of Dr. Spock. John Rovenstine would move to Hutchinson, Kansas, and then respond to the call to the draft of the U.S. Army, working in prisoner war camps in Dexter, New Mexico, and Neosho, Missouri. This had a negative impact on little boys Wendell, Lauren, and Timmy. Lauren was born in Hutchinson, then Tim. John, the husband, found a gifting in upholstering. Furniture was a good fit. John always loved to restore, renew, rebuild, resurrect. He did this as well to several houses in deplorable conditions that he purchased. Mark, Wesley, Charles, Joseph were also born in Hutchinson. During John's midlife crisis in 1953, the Rovenstines went to live in Garden City, Kansas to be pastors. Aleda would then become a holiness preacher's wife. She carried her load well. She would call and remind people to come to church, and one Sunday on Christmas they actually had 64 in attendance, much better than the 15 that they had when they first arrived. Thomas Dell arrived with the family in Garden City, Kansas. Rovenstines ate jackrabbit hamburgers, oxtail soup, and Jewish rye bread day old from the Wheeler's Bakery. Dust storms were frequent in those days. They didn't know they were poor, but the Rovenstines' music band and their song, "I've Got a Mansion Just Over the Hilltop," was a hit at every summer camp meeting. In August of 1957, they would move to Hill City, Kansas to start the Pilgrim Holiness Church. Mary Elizabeth came to the family at this time. Weddings of grown boys, Wendell to Esther and Lauren to Ruth, were highlights. In 1967, they would move to Birmingham, Alabama, and there they would move to Augusta, Kansas. Then to Osawatomie, where Lauren came and moved his mom and dad to Goodland before they settled in Hill City, Kansas. Later, family members wanted them to move to Bartlesville, where they would spend their retirement years. Our mother got along so well with so little. She will be remembered as the perfect optimist. In a letter that she wrote in September of 1988, I would like to read, and I quote, "Today we flew to Dallas on our way to London. When we arrived in Dallas, we called Nancy and started towards the gate where she said she would meet us, and as we were walking down to the outside gate, I heard someone call, 'Warmerdam!' And I turned to look, and there stood my dear beloved son, Mark Wesley Rovenstine. Only a mother can understand my feeling. Mark took Dad to the airport with me to get us on a 5:30 flight to London. It was an 8.5 hour flight. It was after 2:30 in the morning by our time when we arrived on September the 21st, 8:30 a.m. London time. Lauren and Ruthie came about 3 hours later following us. We stood at the fence. It seemed a long time waiting for them to clear customs at the gate in London, where they would come, and Dad would keep saying, "Come on, Lauren, come on through those doors." We started thinking, what would we do if they don't show up? But a little while, here they came, and it was a pleasant relief to see them. I kept wondering if when I get to heaven, if I just keep going to the gate, will I see if my children come? End of quote. I can imagine at this time our mother there at the portals of heaven with my dad, and he's saying, "Come on, kids," and he's waiting for those doors to see who will be coming in next. I would like to share a clip from my mother, in her own words, about her achievements in life.
I asked the Lord, I always try not to be too selfish with my praying, and one time I said, "Lord, if you don't want to answer my prayer, well, I just wish you'd give my mother a good son-in-law." So here's but I got it. And after 60 years, I know I'm not been very successful. I don't have any degrees after my name. But one time Tim told me, he said, Mother, you're just an underachiever. And it sort of hurt my feelings a little bit. I didn't lay awake at night worrying about it, but I thought, my, that's kind of bad to be an underachiever. And all those years, and that's been about 15 years ago, he told me that. And James Dobson had something in the paper the other night about underachievers, and it's really sort of a mental disorder, really. I mean, they're doctoring people for it, and I got to thinking, well, I would make a good ball player because I don't care who wins. I mean, it's all right. So, then I'm trying to think, well, what was I good at? And I did want a big family, so I thought I did pretty good on that deal. And I thought maybe I might live to be married 50 years, and I've lived 60, so I think that would be another thing. And then I don't know of anybody that's had a better family than I've had. I mean, you tell me, I want to know who they are. And then I thought, well, I always said I don't care what you kids do, just so it's decent, if it's decent. But just so you make it to heaven, that was what I always thought. And I just feel with all my heart, you're all going to make it to heaven. So I just wonder what I'd have done if I'd been an overachiever.
In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. And when I am alone, oh, and when I am alone, and when I am alone, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus.